Today on the Daily Charge, our highlights from New York Comic Con, the results of our Galaxy Fold test, and tablets. Are they the future of PCs?
Welcome to CNET's Daily Charge. It's Monday, October 7th. I'm Roger Chang, and with me are Dan Ackerman and Mike Sorrentino. Here are today's stories. So we're still unpacking Microsoft's huge event from last week, and I wanted to go a little bit deeper on the Surface Pro X. So unlike other PCs, this one runs on an ARM chip, which means it runs on the same kind of processor that powers a smartphone. Right. So it's a bit more power efficient, has cellular connectivity baked in, but it doesn't play well with all Windows or PC apps, right? Dan, break it down for us.
Surface Pro X was definitely the thing I got the most emails and tweets about after the event, probably because it seemed the most different, except for those Neo and Duo dual screen things. But those are really just prototypes that you're not going to see until at least a year from now, if not more. So what they did here was they took the Qualcomm Snapdragon style chip that's in a bunch of laptops and tablets already, and said we're doing a tweaked custom Microsoft version. We're calling it the SQ1, but it's really basically the same thing.
I love the rebranding. It's kind of like when Apple rebrands a chip, you know.
Somebody said, does it stand for like Snapdragon something? Like, no, it's just letters.
Just
it's
SQ.
Just a designation.
Yeah, sure.
So like the Surface, it's a tablet. You clip on a keyboard. Unlike the regular Surface Pro, the stylus goes in a cool little pocket right above the keyboard.
Right.
So it snaps in there. It recharges from there. Everyone kind of likes that part. And they claim it'll have pretty long battery life, not really as long as some of the other Qualcomm laptops we've seen.
My question about it is these Qualcomm-powered laptops, these Snapdragon-powered laptops, I mean, generally they don't run all the apps that you want them to run, right? Is that still going to be a big inhibiting factor?
It's a little hit or miss, and this goes way back 2 years ago to the first generation of these. Lenovo had one, HP had one.
But they were announced in Hawaii at that Qualcomm event.
And a few of those products came out, and frankly, we did not find them that impressive because, number one, the battery life was not like the 24 hours they talked about. It was like 12 or 13, which is good, but not extraordinary.
Right.
They weren't really any cheaper than regular laptops, so you weren't saving any money by doing this. And again, they had some compatibility issues with some apps. It's a little hit or miss, but some things just won't work on them because you're not using an Intel and Windows platform. You're using an ARM platform, and it's just not going to be 100% compatible with every Windows app.
And Microsoft isn't the only one doing this. Samsung has the Galaxy Book S as well. So I'm just curious, does this represent sort of that next wave, the future of laptops?
Here's the thing. The first generation came and went. Wasn't that impressive. Frankly, nobody asked for them. They did a little mini second generation. Again, same thing. This is the kind of thing they keep trying to make happen over and over again, even though no one's asking for it. It is a solution in search of a problem. That said, the Pro X and the Galaxy Book S might be very nice. We'll get them, we'll test them, we'll see, but no one is really beating down the doors for these. Yes, it's probably easier to get always-on LTE connections, but you could still do that in most, especially business laptops, pretty easily. You just got to pay for a plan every month. Same thing with these. Here's my biggest problem. With the Surface Pro X, just like every other Surface Pro, the $999 just gets you the tablet part. If you want the keyboard and you want the stylus, which they always show with it, you really need those. I think get the two of them together, $269 extra.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so not quite
every Surface
price.
Pro has had this problem. I think it's a great keyboard, but unless you put it in the box, you're really kind of being a little dishonest with people when you show the product off.
To be fair, it's not just a Microsoft problem, right? Apple does the same thing with the iPad, right? They don't.
But a lot of other guys include the keyboard in their two-in-one boxes.
Apple does not, though.
Well, because that's not a laptop. That's a mobile OS thing.
They really show the Surface on its own ever. It's always attached with those items anyway.
Yeah, that's true. All right, speaking of Samsung, last week we put the Galaxy Fold through its paces, placing it in a machine that continuously folded and unfolded the device. It lasted 14 hours and got through 120,000 folds before its hinge got damaged and, well, half the screen blacked out. That represents about 3 years of use, which seems impressive, except it falls a bit short of Samsung's claims of 200,000 folds or 5 years. Dan?
And frankly, it failed somewhere. I was watching this live, basically. I was fascinated. This was so great.
Were you there the whole 14 hours? That's amazing.
It was a mesmerizing video.
I dodged back in occasionally.
Right.
But it died somewhere between 110 and 120. We don't know exactly where. 120 is the...
You're right. It fell short of 120,
It was
for sure.
Definitely 119 is when they checked it, when it started sounding weird. That's a tough one because when you say 200, that's usually at least 200. It's like the IKEA chair sitting robot that checks the chairs for you.
To be fair, I want to be fair to Samsung on this. I don't think folks are going to be opening and closing their phone 120,000 times straight. So the added stress of the continuous folding and unfolding might have had, a much sharper reaction to or impact on the phone.
I would respectfully counter that and say riding around in your pocket or your bag or being tossed around your house is probably rougher on the device than having one static angle where a machine is not going to overextend it or do anything damaging.
I would disagree because if it's in your pocket, it's not stressing the hinge point.
I mean, just general wear and tear, just being knocked around like your phone.
And the force of the machine itself.
But knocking it around doesn't mess with the hinge. Opening it and closing does mess with the hinge. I think that's kind of the issue here.
That said, I think it's awesome. I still kind of want one.
Yeah, that's the thing. Does it change your opinion on this? It's a $2,000 phone, you expect something like that to actually last for a while. I mean, Mike, what do you think?
It's really an early adopter phone, though. It's like I think it's someone who's they know what they're getting if they're spending $2,000 on this thing. They know that it's going to be a phone that's going to only get like in future iterations. That first one will look really old, even though that first one was $2,000, like the very first Apple Watches, which like they're not even.
With that said, I mean, 3 years is probably plenty of time if you can afford a $2,000 phone as like probably your second phone as a gimmick phone. You could probably afford to upgrade the next year and the year after that, right?
It's still insane.
All right. Lastly, New York Comic Con just wrapped up in our own. Mike Sorrentino and Dan Ackerman both attended this year's show. Guys, what are some of the biggest highlights? Mike, you were covering this. Directly, what would you see?
The biggest one for me was definitely the Star Trek panel on Saturday, the Picard trailer in particular. Got a huge reaction from the crowd that was there. Jonathan Frakes, William Riker's first, Deanna Troi being for the first time appearing in it. They made a point though that this won't be necessarily a Star Trek: The Next Generation reunion. They're trying to at least say like if any character is coming back, it's for a specific reason in their arc.
And it's really just Picard's story.
Yeah, a lot of haunting data. Yeah, a lot of focus on Picard.
And just to full disclosure, CBS Star Trek is a CBS show. CBS owns CNET as well. But beyond Star Trek, were there any other highlights from the show?
I watched the Watchmen first episode, which comes out on the 20th, I believe, on HBO. And Watchmen, it leans a little bit. It's a little bit more like in that first episode, like The Handmaid's Tale or A Man in the High Castle, taking this alternate future with a couple tweaks. Highly charged with like a bit of police violence in the first episode and a bit of like racist groups. There's a little bit of sci-fi, but I feel like that's going to come later in the show. But it was extremely like I happened to be next to like a theater speaker, and there was like a subwoofer like beating. There's lots and lots of music. Like they had R&B for some outros, and when the gunfights began, there's like kind of like a Matrix style EDM in the background. I feel like music is going to be a big instrumental point in the way they tell this story. But it should be. I mean, I came into it like a little bit skeptical, but out of it like kind of excited. It's taking place after the books, so it's going to be just going forward in the world, so it doesn't touch anything about the books.
Gotcha.
Hopefully. And
Dan, speaking of Watchmen, you spoke to Dave Gibbons, right?
Yeah, and we didn't specifically talk about the new series, but we talked about Watchmen and we talked about some games he's working on. I did something unusual at Comic-Con. I bought some actual comics.
Oh. Wow.
Because it's really
People
more about
do
video games and movies and toys.
Still?
I know, right?
Yeah. I do.
I got some new series I hadn't seen before, Blade Runner 2019 with some Sid Mead designed covers, which I thought was very cool. So I started reading that. That was pretty cool. And I got the graphic novel version of William Gibson's never-produced Alien 3 script, which Dark Horse put out in a graphic novel hardcover this year. So I got that too. And we were just discussing, I played some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles stand-up take-it-home arcade game from Arcade One.
By the way, you should check out our YouTube video. Bridget did that. It was fantastic. All right. Let's turn to our live audience to see what questions you guys have about today's headlines. You can sound off here in the comments, or feel free to tweet at us at Daily Charge on Twitter anytime, day or night, and we'll do our best to follow up and keep the conversation going. But for now, let's take a look at what's on your mind at this very moment. BVG?
So yeah, I went to Comic-Con too, but don't worry about that. I don't need to be included in this conversation at all. Caleb says, I don't think tablets will ever replace PCs, maybe laptops. I could see laptops going away and being replaced by tablets, and let's go ahead and include hybrids and convertibles in that categorization as well. The appeal of PC towers is upgradability, which is the exact opposite of the mentality when it comes to a tablet. I think that's a great point to kind of jump off from for our conversation on the show today. Timothy's question says, does the Pro X use eSIM or physical SIM for their cellular connectivity?
Ooh, good question.
I don't know off the top of my head. I bet it's a physical SIM, but I wouldn't bet the farm on it.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, Yan says, what do you guys think of the Pixelbook versus the Surface Pro and the Samsung Galaxy?
I think we should reserve some judgment on what's happening in the Pixelbook space until next week, because we know Google is having an event.
We've got another big event coming from Google next week.
So we'll see what they have there. That said, the last couple of generations have been nice-looking but expensive novelties. It's certainly not a mainstream brand that people go looking for.
There you go.
Premium Chromebooks is a weird sell, and no one's really nailed it yet.
Yeah, it's really all about cheap Chromebooks if you want to buy one, right? It's the easier
Every
sell.
kid I know in like grade school that has a laptop, it's a Chromebook, but it's a $300 or less Chromebook.
Right.
Glad you guys brought that up, because Yan is asking if we know what the timing is going to be for the Google event on the 15th. Wondering how it's going
on the 15th. There's a timing.
They want to know if that's going to delay this show.
Oh, good question. Most likely, yeah. Well, I believe it's in I want to say it's the morning.
Something like that.
10
They're always in the morning.
Yeah.
They're usually around like 9 or 10 or something like that Eastern time. So yeah, that'll bump us inevitably, but we'll still do the recap show either later on that day or first thing the next morning. So that's all we got for you. We don't have the exact timing yet though, but thank you for asking. And thank you for your concern about our broadcast. Timothy asks, is there a stylus/pen/pencil that can be universal where you can use that with a whole line of products?
There are a couple of dumb styluses that work pretty universally. A lot of times for the more specific, tablet-specific apps, you need the official stylus, like the Apple Pencil, and Samsung has their own one, and Microsoft has their own. There are a few third-party ones that basically work almost like your finger. Sometimes they have a little electrostatic surface on the very tip, so it mimics the effect of having a physical finger on it, because like just a piece of plastic may not work, depending on the screen technology.
And sorry, I just want to interject with the Google event. That's it's actually in the afternoon.
Oh, wow.
Like 1 o'clock.
Cool.
So we're all a bunch of liars.
We can act. Yeah, sorry. So we can actually get the show going normal time.
Guess I'm sleeping in.
California, it's the morning.
Yeah, it's true. It's morning in SF, but it's here. Just to be clear.
All right. Next one from Michael Brown. Should Chrome OS be notable in deciding a computer? Most people only use what Chrome OS can offer anyway.
I 100% agree with that. I have been saying this for years. If you get a Chromebook versus a regular laptop, frankly, you may not even notice the difference that much, because 90% of what you do is going to be in that browser interface. Gmail, going to Amazon, going to Facebook, watching Netflix movies. It's all browser based anyway. So for a lot of people, a Chromebook is just as good. Your chances of downloading and running a native app on a laptop is shrinking every day. Unless you're using Photoshop, but that's a whole different category.
Very true.
I mean, that's why Microsoft's kind of pushing some of these ARM-based laptops in the first place, right? So
Photoshop and games. That's basically the stuff you need local installation for. So many laptop questions. It must be almost holiday shopping season or something.
Headline of the show,
You
Dan.
were coming, Dan. They came ready with the questions.
Oh, man. Lightning round.
Let's do it.
Okay. I think this is a rhetorical question, but Joe says, do any other platforms other than PC offer giant local hard drives? I think it's rhetorical, but Dan, correct me if I'm wrong.
That's a good... Well, you know what? You can put a giant hard drive in your game console. You can attach a giant hard drive to your... what do they used to call the machines that would record your DVR at home? What was the brand that had the...
TiVo?
TiVo. There you go. That's so old-fashioned now. I can't even think of the name. I've got a TiVo at home. What is this, 2005? What are you doing?
They still have products, though.
I know. Whatever.
They're still a company.
Yeah.
Kind of.
There you go.
All right.
Will you guys guess and put the Surface Duo on the same test as the Galaxy Fold?
Well, it really depends. Partly,
the screen doesn't fold.
Yeah, the screen doesn't fold. It works on a hinge. It's actually two screens that work on a hinge. There are other device OEMs.
It's not a
that
new
actually do that.
concept.
It's not. LG actually has that right now with I believe it's V50 or G10. There's an accessory that you buy that basically allows it to have a dual screen function. It's just sort of snap-on accessory.
Yeah. And I went back and found laptops that had dual screens and no keyboards going back at least as far back as 2011, where we reviewed the Acer Iconia, which was two 14-inch screens in a clamshell. And when you put your 10 fingers down on the bottom screen, it said, 10 touch points right there. We're going to pop up the on-screen keyboard.
Oh,
but to be fair, since the phone, though, people probably still be a little bit worried about that, even though it's a hinge concept.
Yeah, and keep in mind that with the Fold, we partnered with a third-party vendor that they created this machine specifically for the Fold. So it was kind of a one-off thing. So we'll see if we'll do future ones like this. I'm sure if the opportunity presented itself, we would, but it's still too early to say at this point.
But is it really a phone?
I think it's a phone.
Microsoft kept saying it's a phone. It's not a phone. Don't call it a phone. Even though they kept calling it a phone.
Doesn't want to call it a phone because they got a really bad history with phones, right?
Except for all the times they called it a phone.
I'm just saying they've had a legacy of failure on phones, so they don't want to associate it with. It's not a phone. It's post phone.
But it makes calls. So
it does make phone calls.
Which goes back to the earlier issue of a solution in search of a problem. I've never heard anyone say, "Man, Microsoft should make more phones."
I actually like the old Windows phones. I like the interface. It was nice.
Good for you.
There you go.
A lot of more great laptop and tablet conversation and questions coming in. We're going to try to get to a bunch more real quick. Before we do just a little bit of chatter on Comic-Con stuff, are there any dedicated Linux laptops, or do you always have to install that yourself?
I've received one or two over the great many years. It's certainly not common. There are a couple of places that will do that, yes.
Short answers. Very efficient, Dan. I'm not even ready to come back after you talk that quick.
I'm punchy like that.
Yeah. From a journalist perspective, do you think the Pixelbook or the Pixel Slate 2 will be sufficient for your needs?
To use as a writing tool?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. I'm so keyboard. I really think one day on-screen keyboards will be good enough to use for long-form typing. They're not there yet.
Well, you mentioned Pixelbook, right? That does have a physical keyboard. So.
Not for everything. The problem is everyone wants an everything device that will do, at home, at work, on the road. And I don't know if we're at the point where we have that yet. Maybe folding screens will eventually get us there. Like if you had a device that was like a big phone, you open it up and it was like a 10 or 11-inch screen, and then you had a little Bluetooth keyboard you could put in front of it, and then you have a little mini laptop all-in-one. That might be a good all-in everything device.
And Samsung's gotten pretty close to this. The idea that your phone could just plug into a monitor and a Bluetooth keyboard and becomes the brains of your computer. That's kind of where we're. And in terms of your question, at least for me, a Chromebook would probably be sufficient. Most of it's browser based.
85% of the time,
browser based. Right.
Yeah.
There are probably some exceptions. I don't deal with photos as much as some of my colleagues, so I think other folks who have Photoshop needs probably would need a full-fledged computer.
It's like anything else. You may need more than one computer in your life if you're a heavy-duty user.
All right, just a few minutes left, so let's go ahead and talk about Star Trek and Comic-Con. On the panel here today, who are Trekkies and who are Star Wars fans?
I'd say both.
Can I be both?
Yeah, you can be both. I'm
more.
It's not
but
an either or.
I have some unpopular opinions.
All right, bring it. You loved The Last Jedi. Is that your
Oh, no, Star Trek-wise.
Oh, okay.
First of all, Discovery is really good. Picard looks really good. I'm of a certain generation. You can tell from the gray in my beard, so I'm a TOS guy, the original series. I never liked Next Generation or any of the other new shows. I thought they looked
unpopular.
I thought they looked awful. They have aged terribly.
They
that giant dinosaur suit.
Original series is
and the
great.
tribbles
1960s.
really look great.
So let's talk about Discovery
drama.
Season 3 trailer really quick, so we didn't go into that.
Let's
It's really
do
cool
that.
they're going to 930 years in the future to get away from the series canon.
I actually think that's brilliant because they've had to twist themselves in different contortions to make themselves flow with canon. And now that they've wiped themselves out of canon and brought themselves way into the future where they can just do whatever they want, that just seems so much more liberating.
Yeah, it's a bit sad because I really enjoyed Sonequa Martin Green's character's connection to the Spock family.
Yes.
But
yeah.
But in a way, it does make sense because it doesn't come up in the series. But then again, you never know what Discovery will do. Maybe they'll finagle something together.
I really did enjoy the actor who played Spock. I thought he did a really good job, and kind of sad to see that he won't be progressing.
But there's a short trek that came out on Saturday as well, with featuring him in his first day on the USS Enterprise. So that's online now on the CBS website, our parent company, for disclosure. But
we're not shilling, we're not pushing it.
But in the trailer, he
Trek
asks a bunch of
fans.
annoying questions. It's hilarious.
That's great.
I miss Jason Isaacs.
Yeah, I do too.
What the heck?
Great. I mean, he's dead.
I mean, the other
Sorry,
spoilers.
spoiler alert.
But
Spoiler alert.
that's
It's
the
on
one
Netflix
from
and
the
that.
other universe. What about the one from
first
our
one was already
universe?
dead. He was dead at the
You
beginning.
didn't see it happen. It was
That's
just sort of
true.
related third hand.
He was great.
And that never seems like that's the case.
My theory on that was that it wasn't that they wanted him off the show. He's probably just too expentive.
That's what I heard.
yeah,
Him
yeah.
and
They also gave him
Michelle-
they gave him
Michelle
an arc,
Yeoh,
though.
right?
He
Michelle
also
Yeoh
went
was-
on to go
they
do
couldn't
Dark
have them
Crystal.
both. Meanwhile, the
Brian
other
was saying?
guy.
Sorry, Brian. What?
He went on to do Dark Crystal.
Oh,
why.
I haven't seen that yet,
Yeah.
but it's supposed to be good.
I loved it, but
Nice,
that's a
nice.
conversation for another day. I feel like we need to have a Star Trek roundtable or something on the show. It's like a special when
That'd be
it's
fun.
Yeah.
We
should.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Real quick before we let everyone go, Patrick Stewart coming back as Picard. Do you think he'll come back as Professor X?
No.
Definitely
No.
not.
Why not? I
Sorry.
can see a cameo or two in a
Nah.
future X-Men.
The
movie.
last
I think
movie was too
He's already
good.
done a bunch of
I think
cameos.
Disney wants to wipe the memory of the Fox X-Men movies
No,
out.
but, well, okay, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right about that. But remember, it wasn't Marvel and Disney. It was Sony and Marvel. But they brought back J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah
That's
Jameson
true,
at the
that's
very
true.
end
But
of
that's
Spider-Man.
different. That's a different issue than
And yet,
than
it's-
mutants, though.
But it's the same. It's the same kind of series jumping where you have
Yes.
one little
Yeah,
callback.
Yeah. I mean, maybe in a cameo.
Yeah.
Maybe in a really brief
the last couple
cameo.
of ones were cameos, though.
That's true. I don't see. I just feel like there's so much. The X-Men franchise is just so like destroyed itself that Disney just wants to like erase it all from memory.
But
think-
all of them, the main stars have basically aged out at this point. Robert Downey, Captain America, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
They have to basically do what comic books do and do a reboot anyway and do a
Right.
new issue one because no one's gonna go see. I mean, people see it, but it's not gonna be the same. Like, the Black Widow movie, the Hawkeye movie,
There's
whatever.
also so many X-Men that they can take a whole new angle on it.
Yeah,
they
that's true.
They could
They
even
don't
do it
need
and not
to
even call
do
it
the
X-Men.
callbacks.
Well, they did that. It's called The New Mutants, and apparently it's so bad they've delayed it for like 2 years
yeah.
and
Again, but
reshot
that
it,
was-
and they're
but-
taking.
Again, that's a Fox
But there's
production.
Deadpool,
Yeah, I
and,
know.
and
That's the
Disney's
thing.
so happy to have Deadpool because
That's true.
Deadpool's on the Disney site now.
Right.
And
right.
Deadpool just features Deadpool, even though he's sort of an X-Men.
There you go.
The cameos are definitely a possibility, but the rumors that are flying around from the casting notes of the movie that it's definitely not going to be a Patrick Stewart. They're probably going to go younger. They've been specifically cited as saying that they want to cast people of color in that role, which I think is an excellent idea.
Interesting.
Oh, and current rumors? Cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's just rumor mill, but
Yeah.
I mean, being a comic book geek, I've got my ear to the ground. And definitely with what I saw at
Samuel L.
Comic-Con
Jackson is Professor X.
Oh my God, take all of my money.
Give
From
me
what
that.
I saw
Mother
at
effing
Comic-Con,
mine.
There's a whole
Professor
issue
X
there.
all along.
There's a whole issue there.
From what I saw at the Comic-Con panel I went to this weekend with House of X and Powers of 10, the comic books are definitely reseeding themselves to be more receptible. Is that a word?
Accessible?
Maybe accessible, but cater more towards multiverse, Marvel MCU kind of film appeal.
All the
So-
characters look like they're movie versions now.
The
The
current
costumes
X-Men
have
storyline's
changed.
pretty dark. It's a whole other topic, but it's pretty awesomely dark. the
Thank
current
you,
X-Men
Mike,
comic
because
story.
I just
Okay.
got crash coursed on that the other day, and it is weird. And that's saying a lot for the X-Men franchise. But it's good. That being said, we should probably wrap this up. We're way over. Thanks, everybody, for being patient with us running late. Having some ongoing technical issues in here. I'm working them out. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get them sorted out in the near future. Until then, just want to share with everyone my wares from Comic-Con this weekend.
Nice.
We got some turtle issues. I bought an original
Nice.
print of Superman Red Sun, which is officially the next DC Animated Universe movie.
Yeah, okay.
And
Oh, nice.
House of X custom print cover.
Nice.
So that was a good Comic-Con for me this year. Mike, Dan, hope you guys had a good time too.
As always.
I'm really sad I couldn't go. It's like the first time in a couple of years I wasn't able to go. I mean, I had a good excuse.
It'll be back next year. Yeah, you had a good
A
reason.
decent reason for it. So, all right. Thank you all for the questions. If you enjoyed the show, go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe. We are live every weekday morning here on YouTube, Periscope, and CNET.com. Also, you can subscribe to our audio podcast as well as the new and improved Supercharged Extended Podcast on pretty much every platform available. Links to all these are in the description below. For the Daily Charge, I'm Roger Chang. This is Dan Ackerman, and this is Mike Sorrentino. Thank you for joining us.
Can't get enough? Check out the Daily Supercharge, our extended post show with special features, audience Q&A, and in-depth reviews. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.